Hi there, this is Tracy from tracydevet.com. And in this video, I'd like to talk about fighting your anxiety. So it is something that's been on my mind to talk about for a while. I deal with a lot of anxiety clients, and what happens is you get stuck in the negative anxiety loop. So things start making you anxious. They cause fear. The fear causes more anxiety, and the anxiety causes more fear. And so you can see how it's quite easy to get stuck in this very negative anxiety fear response loop. And when it happens a lot and over time, it can actually turn into what's called a general anxiety disorder. So that means that your mind and your reactive system gets so used to being in this hyper vigilant fear anxiety state that everything it comes across gets viewed with a very negative view. And over time, people with anxiety can tend to see only the bad things in what's going on around them, or they become overly sensitized to them and overly affected by them. So whereas the average person would take a comment, listen to it, or an interaction, and they would brush it off as being perhaps the other person's, in a bad mood today or not feeling well or whatever, the person with generalized anxiety tends to think of it as some sort of threat to themselves. So that person doesn't like me, that person gives me the heebie-jeebies, I need to just stay away from them. And all of this is very difficult if it's a work colleague or somebody that, if you're studying, that kind of thing, it's difficult to get yourself away from a situation like that. And unfortunately, when you avoid situations and get yourself out of situations such as don't go out much or start avoiding social situations, when you go to work, you keep to yourself, that kind of thing. Isolation leads to more fear, and fear, you guessed it, leads to more anxiety, and you get stuck even more in that negative anxiety loop. So what's the way out of this? Because, if you have got anxiety, you've probably done loads and loads of online research, because that's what people with anxiety tend to do, as to what it's all about and what's happening and why. And that really isn't important when it comes to getting out of this, because the why it happened, where it started, that kind of thing is not particularly helpful because it's in the past. And at some point in the past, your brain set up this almost like an automatic response that has carried on, and that's what you're responding to. Despite you thinking consciously, oh, this might not be scary after all, or I can do this, and then you do it, and then you get knocked back by anxiety again. And that's because you were expecting it in some ways. And part of you is trying to get away from it. And when this anxiety pops up again, that part that's trying to get away from the anxiety gets really shocked and almost paralyzed, if you like, in your mind. And it seems like the anxiety is way, way worse. So there are some things that you can do. In my other videos, I've covered breathing. If you're having a panic attack or anxiety is rising, the easiest, quickest way to get back into control at the time is to do your breathing. So start focusing on that breath coming in, count for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, and keep doing that. You can increase that number if you like to a comfortable level, of course. Nothing extreme here, it's just a way to calm you down. The other thing that you can do is just stop fighting the anxiety. So when you feel that heartbeat racing, when you feel yourself sweating, if you feel yourself going hot, cold, whatever those symptoms are, don't fight them. Just see them as a reaction, just as you would if you, sniffed a flower and the pollen went up your nose and made you sneeze. Similar to that, it's something that's happening, and it's something that you stop fighting. And when you stop fighting it, the fear level goes right down. And of course, this is not going to happen the first time this happens. It's something that you need to practice. But eventually it will become a positive habit. So the more you practice it, the better it's going to be for you. So practice the breathing. Stop fighting that anxiety. Just let it wash over you and see it as something that your brain is trying to tell you. There's a part of you that's trying to protect you from the world or trying to protect you from certain things. And it may be totally overreacting to stuff that's not actually dangerous, but somehow your brain has got the message that it is. So if it's at work, for instance, you may be a boss and you may have a very high position, and you might be getting anxiety because you realize that people at work, not everybody likes you. And of course, when you are a boss, that goes with the territory. But if you're a sensitive person and you're used to being liked by people, this can be extremely distressing and lead to anxiety. So you need to let go of that thought that everybody needs to like you. It's very, very unlikely that everybody would like you anyway. Even if you were perfect, there'll still be people who wouldn't like you for whatever reason to do with them, by the way, and the way that they see the world. But you need to be able to let that go. So when the anxiety, especially work stress and anxiety, washes over you, just calmly accept it and say, what is this actually trying to tell me? I'm just going to be calm, let it wash over me like a big wave and see what happens. I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to be scared of it. It's just a reaction. And do you know, the more that you have this, make yourself have this state of mind, the less those anxious thoughts are going to be overwhelming, and they'll dial right back, and you'll be able to cope with whatever comes your way. The other thing is to start keeping an anxiety journal. Now, that might sound a bit counterproductive. The proviso is that you start with 3 positive things, 3 things at the top of the page that you are happy about and want to have, and that you are grateful for. So 3 things. That's what you're going to start with, positive things. And then when you have a reaction, you're going to analyze that reaction with 3 things. What's the emotional part? What was the physical symptoms? What was the behavioral outcome of that? Like, what did you do at the time? So you need to track and write down these things. So you can make it, do like a sort of XY axis with the cross in the middle. And one of them would be emotion. What was the emotional component that you felt at the time? What were your thoughts preceding this? So what was that split-second thought that made this all happen? You know, how did it go from being just an ordinary situation to one where you've been triggered? Then what were the actual physical symptoms that it caused? And write those down. And then what was the behavior? What did that make you do? So for instance, you could be, if you had social phobia, you could be out and about. Let's say you're getting on a bus and you ask the conductor for a ticket and he doesn't hear you. So you have to speak louder. And at that point, you realize that everybody on the bus seems to be looking at you while you are asking the conductor for this ticket. A little trigger goes off in your brain that, oh, I'm the center of attention here. Everybody's looking at me. I'm starting to go red. I'm starting to feel hot. I'm feeling it somehow. I'm feeling embarrassed about this. And I'm feeling extremely uncomfortable. I'm sweating. I'm shaking. And I've got these catastrophic thoughts that I just need to get the heck out of here. I can't be on this bus. People are looking at me and I feel very uncomfortable. And so instead of just buying the ticket and going on the journey to work or wherever you're off to, you decide that part of you decides that this is the fight or flight response. It's time to flee. So you grab your purse and you exit the bus as quickly as you can. And of course, after that's happened, what are the thoughts in your head then? Because that can actually trigger you being very negative towards yourself, saying that was stupid, that was silly, why did I do that? That's even more embarrassing. I should have just stayed there, bought the ticket, quietly sat down. People look at you on the bus whenever, if you're sitting on the bus and somebody gets on, it's a natural thing to look and see who's getting on or off a bus. We all do it. It shouldn't be stressful. But if you found it was stressful, it's good to record these 4 facets. So what was the initial thought that started it? What was the emotional response? What were you feeling at the time? Was it fear? Was it shame? Was it anger? All of those kind of things. What were the bodily sensations that actually resulted from that? Sweating, temperature change, flushing, blushing, heartbeat, etc. And then what was your behavior afterwards? And once you start to record these things whenever they happen, you'll start to see patterns emerging. And once you can see patterns emerging, you can predict what's going to happen the next time you're in that situation. And when it becomes a known quantity that you know this is how it's likely to go, but it's not very helpful to you, you can start making changes to that. And so when you feel that initial thought in your head of this is embarrassing, this is terrifying, I need to get off this bus, you can be your own best friend and start saying, no, there's nothing dangerous about this bus. I'm going to sit at the front. I don't have to engage with anybody on this bus. I need to get on this bus to go to work or college or whatever. It's non-negotiable. I have to get there and I'm going to force myself to do it. And once you've done that a few times, you'll find that that reaction that you've had will start to reduce anyway. It might never go away because it might be genuinely stressful. If you live in a very busy city or whatever, it might be stressful catching a bus because you've got vehicles around. Your system is on high alert because it doesn't want you walking out in the street and getting knocked over and that kind of thing. It's just trying to protect you in sort of a busy place where it feels a bit ill at ease. So it's absolutely natural for loads of people without anxiety problems to feel nervous or anxious about getting on a bus, even if you do it every day. So then there'll still be a little tiny bit of anxiety, So we're not looking to eliminate it completely, but you should certainly be able to bring down that overwhelming response that literally would make you want to run off that bus and not even use it to get to your destination. I hope this video has been helpful for you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And as always, if you have any questions, then like, subscribe, get in touch, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, at tracydevette.com.